NBA edition. Today, we are going to be talking about the halfway point of the NBA, a little All-Star weekend, a little Cavs update, mostly about the trades that have happened since we have been away. But first, we have the NBA aficionado, his first episode of 2025, Mr. Evan Debo. Hope you're having a great 2025 so far, and Happy New Year.
Likewise, buddy. Hope you're having a good 2025 start to you and yours. And yeah, I mean, it's now we're in the second half of the NBA season, more or less, and tons of things coming down the pike, including the trade deadline this week, All-Star next weekend.
Evan, where do you want to begin?
Where were you? I
Mhm.
know where you were, but for the listeners, where were you when you found out the craziest trade of our lifetime happened? The
Uh,
Mavericks
mhm,
traded Luka Doncic to the
mhm,
Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis.
mhm. Funny enough, I was in Indianapolis with some of the other L7C for the Royal Rumble. We were at a karaoke bar and we were watching some karaoke. And then I just looked at my phone, got the breaking news, rattled the troops around me because everyone's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I just casually just showed them my phone, and everyone's like, "Is that real? Is that a real source?" And then while I'm showing the crew on my phone, everyone starts looking up at the TV, see breaking news all over the place. And this is about 12:40 in the morning when this happens. So I was with the crew at the Royal Rumble, and that's when I found out. How about you?
So I went to bed early that night after watching the Royal Rumble, and I woke up a considerable amount of time after the news broke. You know, I'm a long time poops junkie that's got, permanent Shams notifications on pushed to my phone. So I woke up and saw there were a couple Twitter ones. I know we're in the thralls of trade deadline time, so I'm waiting to see what low level person was traded. Woke up probably somewhere between like 1:40, 2 o'clock in the morning, Martin, and I couldn't believe it. I'm scrolling. I'm like, okay, well, like clearly he's like everybody else thought. Clearly Shams has been hacked, right? So then you like do what you normally do. So you go and you're like, okay, well, the outward facing name and profile picture of Shams, but like, what does the handle say? Is it like sh.ams, ESPN? Like you're looking for all the little tells. And then we got that second tweet that said, this is 100% real. The fact that he said that, I mean, again, just shows where the world of basketball went. I mean, everybody was dumbfounded, Martin.
Yeah. Yeah. It just didn't make like initially, like just seeing it.
It still doesn't. It
Yeah,
still doesn't make sense.
it's it's just baffling because it's the first time that two all NBA players are traded basically for each other. I know there's other people who are part of the trade, but let's be real, it's basically Luka for Anthony Davis. And it's the last game that Anthony Davis played, he had 40 and 20. And then obviously Luka is 26 years old, 26, 25 around there. And when he's healthy, I know he hasn't played in a bit. When he's healthy, he's one of the top five players minimum in the NBA because he's gotten five all NBA first teams. So that means you're one of the top five best. So I, dude, I'm still shocked and that this even was a thing because people joked you can't even make that trade in the video game.
Yeah. So full trade. Los Angeles sends Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and one of two Laker future first round picks they had to trade the 2029. They did not send their second to Dallas for Maxi Kleber, Markieff Morris, Luka Doncic, and then as a salary push to Jazz, received Jalen Hood Shafino, the Clippers 25 second round pick, and the Mavs 25 second round pick to make the money work. Martin, the best way, like even non-basketball sports fans, I've like to try to like quantify, like, okay, what kind of big deal is this? Like, it's like you have you got the nicest house in the nicest neighborhood. Like you're the Dallas Mavericks. Every day, somebody people are walking by your house. Like, man, if that house were ever on the market, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's literally where we're at. And people have waited for, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I forget how long Luka's been in the league now. I mean, I think he came in at what 18, 19, and what 25 now, somewhere around there. So 6, 7 years. But you're waiting on that house to go on the market. It's got everything. It's got curb appeal. It's going to go well over asking. The second they put a sign in the yard. Meanwhile, you wake up and there's a sold sign in the yard, and the owner of the house called somebody else way down the block's son and negotiated with them for way under asking in the middle of the night. Like, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No, no, no.
I,
It makes no sense.
I,
It's
if,
even,
I mean, like clearly, if this had gone to market, I mean, you're talking the usual that we've seen for years. You're talking multiple firsts. You're talking pick swaps. And Anthony Davis is a huge asset in himself, and the Lakers gave up a lot to get him originally. But I mean, you're seeing the swap piece. You're seeing you're seeing creativity. You're seeing maybe a third team brought in to help facilitate and give the Mavs some other things. But I mean, this was truly dumbfounding. I mean, you feel so bad for. There's just so many places we could go, Martin. You feel so bad for the Mavericks fans. Like, this guy's an MVP candidate every year. We picked him a couple times in the last couple of years to win it in our preseason predictions. Easily top 3 player in the prime of his career. There's been the discussion, the famous video of Michael Finley taking the beer can out of when they won the Western Finals last year. But he just took you to the finals and averaged 30, 10, and 8. Like, it makes zero sense.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all because, like you just said, this team was literally in the finals. And just two things. Like this time last year, we were talking about how good an acquisition Dallas made when they got PJ Washington, because PJ Washington was a very important piece that helped them get past OKC and then eventually to the finals, things like that. And then we've talked on this podcast for years for the delusional Laker fan base, like, hey, you guys are your salary cap isn't good. The only way you're getting someone good is if you trade AD and LeBron. And Lord and behold, after all these years, they actually traded one of them.
Yeah, I mean, so clearly the Lakers, I mean, got away with murder here. Like, it just makes, I don't know, it makes zero sense. Like, other teams got to be frustrated. None other than the Mavs fans. Again, like, it's just all those slights out the door, like, of, hey, defense wins championships. The conversations about his weight, like, I mean, yeah, he's definitely not the most in shape guy, but I mean, he's a bucket. Like, I mean, just like we've never seen. He's 25 years old, and the Lakers keep getting away with stuff like this. Amazing.
Yeah, they've continued to trade to get their next star for a decade or for win now. Like obviously going back to Wilt, Kareem, trading picks to get James Worthy, Shaq, Kobe, Paul Gasol, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and now Luka, who will be their star for the next. Well, I can't even say that, Evan, because obviously Luka could not re-sign with them if he does not want to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a potential too. But I mean, I think he's clearly in. He's motivated. He's angry. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's alluded to. He's been super polite in interviews. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's other pieces here. Of just how the two GMs knew each other, the Kobe, the Nike connections. Like, it's just, the whole thing just seems so conspiracy weird. Like, I've heard the conspiracy stuff of, like, all right, this is the new Mavs owners trying to tank the franchise so they can get him to Vegas, and bottom out here. Like, I mean, getting Anthony Davis, you're not going to bottom out. You still have Kyrie, you still have Clay. They beat the Celtics last night without Anthony Davis and a couple of the other pieces. But I think it just feels, I don't know, man. It's just got a feeling in NBA fans' guts that's just, like you'll never have closure on it.
Yeah, and I don't want to poo-poo. Like that's the thing I've not liked about the trade because obviously Luka is the better player and for more years to come. But let's not poo-poo who Anthony Davis like is and the fact that like him and Kyrie and the pick and roll and things of that nature. Like the Dallas Mavericks are still going to be good this year. Like they're still going to be able to compete this year. It's just the stuff going on in the future. Like we're not going to act like Anthony Davis is a scrub.
No, not by any means. I mean, he is, you know, what he's built to be on the defensive side. He's strung together some healthy stuff here and there.
Hmm.
You know, there's been questions about, you know, Luka's injury health. I mean, he's slated to come back. I mean, I think they're actually going to play the Mavs in the next 7 to 10 days or so.
Hmm.
And I mean, can you imagine the tickets for that?
Oh yeah, it's already
He's going to drop the hammer on the Mavs.
yeah.
I
It's
just feel so bad for that fan base, man. Like it's got underpinnings of almost like the LeBron stuff, but when it's your own management who did this to you. I mean, this is. I've tried to gather my thoughts for this podcast, and I still do not have an answer or can rationalize some kind of position that just makes it make sense. Like you just really feel like they just there's clearly a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to,
yeah.
and the Mavs feel like for whatever reason like they're just they had to get out of the Luka business, which is just insane.
Yep. Yep. That's how they.
You get out of the GM business, you get out of the coach business, you get out of the other 14 players on the roster business before you get out of the Luka business,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they didn't do it.
Yeah. And we'll definitely see how it plays out once everyone's on the court. Once Luka's on for the Lakers, AD for the Mavs. I mean, time will tell. I think they obviously, if Luka stays there the next 10, 15 years, then the Lakers again they have their generational piece. They already have their
Mm-hmm.
succession plan for when LeBron leaves. So
And LeBron's still a bucket. I mean, they just beat the Knicks. They won again
mhm.
last night. He dropped. Uh, he's the oldest player in the history of the game ever to drop 40 points. Like after the age of 40, like hasn't been done since Jordan, and he did more. Like he's he's not slowing down. Still, we keep saying this.
Yeah, because that game, like the oldest player scored since Jordan, because I think it's just by a couple, because they were both 40, but a couple days. Because LeBron had 42, 7, 8, and he made six threes and shot 56% from the field. And then Jordan's game with the Wizards, he had 43 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals, and he shot 60% from the field. But LeBron, ever since, I don't know if it was since the new year started, but like the Lakers too, they've been surprising. They're in the hunt, one of the top four seeds in the West. So let's see how long it
Yeah, I
goes.
mean they've been frisky, and yeah, I mean we'll see how this goes. I mean, you just need a ticket for the dance, and I mean Luka shows out in the playoffs. I mean,
Yes.
so the other corresponding piece is you know the prior to the deadline, you know, you had Anthony Davis like doing the tell all of I really need to be a power forward and we need a center. They need more post players. Well, you're Anthony Davis, and you really don't have any post players. So Martin, with that other coveted 2031 pick that the Mavericks didn't get or, you know, didn't ask for, it wasn't involved in the trade. You know, they do make a corresponding move on a couple days later. They they send out that pick, Dalton Connect, and Cam Reddish, and do a 2030 pick swap to the Hornets for young up and coming center Mark Williams. Feels like Charlotte has 18 centers, and they also seems like they've traded them away because they also just traded a center the Clippers as well too. So they get Mark Williams, you know, really good up and coming kid. So that's kind of their Williams average. He's been sidelined since November, but he averaged 16 and 9.8 over his final 22 appearances with the Hornets. So I mean, it's a serviceable guy and you know investment project by all means. So I mean, but you know a lot of other corresponding parts you got to get to a championship.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. It's really just interesting. We're gonna see how it plays out. Who knows the way this league will go? They might be in the playoffs, but I'm gonna be honest, like, because people have brought this up jokingly, but now I'm gonna bring it up seriously. If David Stern was around, would he have let this trade go?
Yeah, he probably would have CP3 this somehow. But no, I mean, again, that he wouldn't have done anything this time. I mean, I think there's a number of things he would have done to, like, whether it's CBA years before, make it so you couldn't do a trade like this or something else. You know what I mean? Like, he would have impacted it that way. But I mean, I know we all get feisty about the ridiculousness that was him vetoing the Clippers or the CP3 trade from the Hornets. But you know, that was a weird thing where the Hornets technically owned, or was technically owned by the NBA board of governors, and like Stern was basically like in the vice president role, could like veto and stuff. So like, I get it, I get the sentiment, but I think he would have impacted it probably through the CBA, like, harsher aprons or penalties if you're way over, cap stuff, those kinds of things.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I
Martin,
mean,
let's get to another crazy trade. So, like, obviously, the other hostile, besides the hostile we didn't even know was hostile because Madden didn't know they were losing Luka Doncic. The storm that had long been brewing, Jimmy Butler in Miami. And I don't know if you were following all the Kevin Love posts, but that was just pure cinema. The movie clips, the references, I'm surprised Kevin didn't get like fined, like basically almost dogging the tumultuous relationship between the front office and Jimmy, who kept getting fined, kept not showing up for flights, kept getting suspended, and in a move where a stagnant Golden State, doesn't have a lot of assets to play with, and you're in the twilight of Steph's career, they come out of the woodworks and they acquire Jimmy Butler, and they send Andrew Wiggins as kind of the two main pieces of that trade back to Miami. And then they had negotiated with Jimmy to give him another basically 2-year contract upon the trade. Um, Thoughts, Martin?
I honestly think that Jimmy Butler in these past couple, man, he just has the rap now of the disgruntled employee. Like
That's how the
everywhere
Jimmy
he
Butler business
goes,
always ends. Yep.
everywhere he goes. Just think about like with Jimmy Butler in the Heat, this was his most successful tenure as a team. Like Jimmy Butler went to
Took him the
two
finals twice.
finals, two of them with this team. And for it to end, I mean, I just feel like this is more about Jimmy just being disgruntled again because there's never been a clean exit.
No, there hasn't. There was that report that had come out, I believe, towards the end of last week, that basically said like, "Hey, Steve Kerr and Steph Curry were both like, we don't want to rock the locker room, and this has the potential to rock the locker room in the worst way, like just with what kind of headspace he tends to be in, those kinds of things." Then they go and trade for him, then they re-up him, like. I, I, I get it. I mean, at a certain point, management's trying to show Steph, they're trying to show their fans that they're not just, they're not going to let Steph just kind of waste out his final years without them trying to do something. I just don't know that this was the case. But on the heels of that, Martin, um, they tried really aggressively, and they might have even gotten pretty close to the doorstep to getting Kevin Durant back. Like, that was a thing. And Kevin said no, presumably over, again, just what ended up being after he went to Golden State, how things kind of ended with Draymond, but obviously like how Kevin views, what a lot of people think is a tarnished legacy, going to a 72 win team and, winning 2 titles without much effort. That was wild.
Hmm. Hmm. No, agreed. Agreed. The fact that that was even sparked rumor or not that he could be heading back to Golden State. And it was also funny too when Luka got traded, everyone just like Well, no one's safe because you thought Luka was an untouchable
right?
piece. And then ever since the Luka thing, everyone's just like, oh my God. Now the Warriors are basically calling about every superstar in the league and things of that nature. And it was just crazy. And the fact that Durant, that it was even talks that he could go back to Golden State, but he didn't want to. And it's just wild.
It seemed like Phoenix was more than willing to like have conversations about Kevin Durant for as bad as they've been. For you got Bradley Beal that's this anchor. Bradley Beal hasn't played too bad, but he's not worth whatever he's being paid as like the third or fourth highest contract in the league or whatever he is. But like obviously he's got the no trade clause. He's harder to move. They're intentionally benching him to make him mad. Like it's not gone well, and I mean like around that for whatever reason, like it seems like teams were definitely trying to aggressively once they found out like hey, at least they're having conversations, even if the conversations are ridiculous. They're not hanging the phone up on you. Even today, as we're recording this on Friday, February 7th, you saw the report that Minnesota aggressively tried to see what it would take to get Kevin Durant.
Yeah. Yeah. But he's still in Phoenix. Sometimes I forget that Phoenix has Durant and Booker because, they've underachieved since being together, but see if they do something the second half of the
This
season.
just seems like such a monumental. I mean, I don't feel like we're doing it justice. I mean, but obviously to be cognizant of the listeners' time,
Hmm.
of our time for pods and stuff, like there's just so many layers to unpack here where just these two trades, like we haven't even gotten some of the other ones yet. But I mean, this seemed like a trade deadline to remember, man. Martin, let's kick it to the Central Division in the East. Um, Milwaukee gets out of the Chris Middleton business, who's been kind of hampered by injuries. Last couple of years, it's been trying to get him to get over the hump. He was the last man standing in that series against the Pacers last year and really, worked his tail off, but, just wasn't quite the form that he was, one of the core members of their championship team. And they sent him to Washington for Kyle Kuzma. Like, I, I mean, it just another instance of a team just feeling like they need some kind of shakeup. But I just don't. Kyle Kuzma, man, like ultimate like high points, bad team kind of guy. Like, I just show me the success stories with Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, that was an interesting one because I didn't expect Chris to be traded because he was also one of the original people besides Giannis left from like that championship that they won against Phoenix. But again, maybe they felt like Cal Kuzma, less injury prone, younger, can give them something that Chris Middleton can't. And then they made the move. I feel bad for Chris. He's a champion. He's really good, good player. Now he's at the Wizards, where even though currently the Cavs are losing to the Wizards, that's where your career goes to die.
Yeah, I mean the Wizards are 9-41. They are as advertised. They haven't been good in a long while. I feel bad. I kind of wondered, hey, is that a potential like maybe Cavs could sneak in and get a wing, like that, and put it right back to Milwaukee, almost the same fashion that when Drew Holiday was originally uh, dumped from Milwaukee, and then Boston goes and snags him kind of situation. But nope, he's still with the made it through the Wizards to the trade deadline. But that one, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think they need some kind of shake, especially after OKC torched them last week. I mean, I think there's a couple teams that we're going to talk about that they got beaten ways that I think really challenged them at the deadline to say like, I don't know if we're prepared for insert X or Y scenario in the playoffs like we could be, and we owe it to our fans in the season to try to do something. Martin, another sizable trade here. So obviously a lot of turmoil in Sacramento. Mike Brown gets fired. De'Aaron Fox, kind of at the center of that discussion. And then it became, okay, they're shopping De'Aaron Fox. And then immediately one of his preferred destinations and, some of the sources started to pinpoint to, and ultimately it happens. We accelerate the Wemby timeline really quick. De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs. in a 3-team trade that also sends Zach LaVine from the Bulls to Sacramento. Um, Obviously, this really accelerates, again, the timeline for the Spurs. You get an all-star point guard right there alongside Wemby that, I think this is a team that's aggressively going to chase the playoffs, and they're having a good, close to 500 season here. I certainly think they could potentially get there. But Martin, thoughts on this one? This was a sizable one. LaVine had been in rumors for several years. A
Yeah,
lot of teams
several
were iffy on
years.
taking a flyer. We've taken a flyer on him in that contract, and then Sacramento ends up working that out with the Bulls to acquire him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Levine's been in, oh my gosh, for every year they feel like he's on the block and then he's never been moved. And then he finally gets moved now. I think with De'Aaron Fox, the biggest thing with me with that trade is just showing how quickly this league moves if you
It moves
don't
so quick,
grasp
Martin.
on your opportunities. Because just think about it. A couple years ago, the Kings were the it team. They were in game 7 against the Warriors, and it took a 50-point performance from Steph Curry to beat him in game 7.
I remember exactly where I was watching that game.
And the fact that when you're watching that, you're like De'Aaron, Sabonis, Mike, the team's the next team up. The team's the new chasing team trying to ascend. The team could be the next, they could be the next young team trying to make the pinnacle, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, like the Memphis Grizzlies, like the Timberwolves with that young star. Right now, like the Houston Rockets. You thought the Kings were going to be in that mix, and they're not now. Now, one of the two biggest pieces on their team is already gone. It just shows how quickly this league moves if people get disgruntled and all of that. And if there's an opportunity now, the owners are showing they will get rid of you. And it's sad for the light the beam because again, that team was they were right there to make the next step, and then it all just squandered.
De'Aaron Fox averaging 25 points, 5 boards, 6.3 assists on 47, 2 points. Really down this year, 32% threes, but obviously a huge piece to add to the alien and the Spurs pursuits. Martin, perhaps some of the almost, I mean, not obviously as egregious as the Lakers Dallas trade, but the Spurs accomplished this without. I'm going to read you some names that didn't make it in the trade that you think the Kings would want as a return, ransom wise, for De'Aaron Fox. Devin Vassell, sorry, did not make it in the trade. Stephon Castle, arguably the rookie of the year, did not make it in the trade. Jeremy Sohan did not make it in the trade. And, again, like everybody was super high on Keldon Johnson a couple of years ago, had that run with the USA select team. It is, not anything to sneeze at either, but a good young piece on a low contract. The Spurs accomplished this with keeping a lot of these young guys in.
Yep. No, again, man, I don't know what the qualifications to be a general manager is besides being cool with the owner, but some decisions are questionable because I'm just like, all right, you're giving up De'Aaron Fox. Are you going to get something back? You're going to get something that will help Sabonis, but no, here we are.
Martin, a couple other notable trades before we get to, of course, the biggest one. Dallas also acquires Caleb Martin in a trade for some wing depth. Again, they weren't entirely content with just, losing a ball handler, wing. Obviously, Kyrie takes up a lot of the initiating the offense roles that Luka had now. But, that's a good little, top 8 rotation pickup, top 9 rotation pickup for Dallas. Also, the Kings rescued Jonas Valanciunas as well, so they get some post play to help back up in Sacramento. But Martin, we got to get to. I think it shocked some people. I think it shocked some people with it. They were able to pull it off in the way they did. I had wondered if when Cleveland lost to Boston for the second time this season, the other night back on Tuesday, if that might be in disguise, the best thing to happen to them. So, I don't think there was, an overwhelming, we got bullied by their wings per se. I mean, their defense was stifling. We couldn't hit shots whatsoever. There's been all games back in the playoffs last year where that was the case too. But obviously, since the departure of LeBron, for 4 or 5 years, we've had a hole, and just it's been built in by committee for the small forward spot. So on trade deadline day, they come back and they address that issue. Kobe addresses that issue. He sends out 4-year Cleveland Cavalier Pickerington Zone Karis LeVert, George Niang, and I think 3 seconds, and then 2 pick swaps. Martin, of notice, I can't recall this happening, but I think it's happened before. This is the first time. These are swaps of swaps from the Donovan Mitchell trade.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the lesser of whatever first round pick, I think in 26 and 28, between Utah and Cleveland, Cleveland takes. And then the lesser of that pick or Atlanta's pick, Atlanta will get, or Cleveland will take, and Atlanta gets the better one, I should say. So these are swaps on swaps. Like, it almost sounds like rap lyrics kind of thing. Like, I mean, like just, I mean, talk about a flex. I mean, to be that, hey, like if that's what Atlanta makes them happy, and we got to keep our 20 with 31 first, we got to keep kind of, arguably still considered a first. He was the first on them last year. Jalen Tyson, our young rook. We didn't have to give up a Max Strus or anything else. I mean, it's tough seeing Karis walk out the door. George is a bucket anytime he touches the ball, but he's so bad defensively on the back end. I mean, that the other night where Darius hit that 3-pointer to win the game, like, part of the reason we were in a tied game with the Pistons that late was George slaps the wrist of a 3-point shooter and sends him to the line, like, for 3, and he makes all 3. Like, that was so bad, but they send all that to Atlanta. They get a 6'8" wing in DeAndre Hunter, who's averaging, since he's come back, in short amount of games, close to 20 points a game off the bench. He doesn't rebound quite like he should for his size. Obviously, we need him to be invested on the defensive side of things. But here's your wing, Cleveland, to throw at Jason Tatum, to throw at Giannis, whatever to throw at Paolo, whatever the wings of the Knicks, however the playoffs line up. I am over the moon. I'm ecstatic. Again, we got to keep a lot of the really good assets here. I'm amazed Kobe continues to pull it off.
So what I'll ask with the trade with getting Hunter, obviously with LeVert leaving, kind of feel kind of sad because, again, that's Pickerington, Ohio. That's right down the road where I went played against my brother and all of that. So that's kind of sad in itself, but I understand the business. So with Cleveland, currently right now, they're playing Washington right now, but they're 41-10. So number on top of the Eastern Conference. With Hunter now, has your outlook changed on how far you think this team can go when it's playoff time, or has it stayed the same?
Oh, I think it's definitely changed in a favorable way. I think I feel much. I don't feel confident by any means that, hey, this is the magic answer to Jason Tatum and Giannis, but I don't think, because I don't think you solve those guys. The league, nobody can solve those guys. But it's a longer defender. It's a more athletic wing. To take the brunt of some minutes. Again, like, to pick up what George was doing defensively, and just that he's got a 7'3" wingspan to be able to delay that much longer for a backside rotation and a Mobley or an Allen to help clean up if it's a contest at the rim, or to lunch out at a 3-pointer when Boston's bombing away like they normally do with their offense. Like, I feel we're better equipped today than where we were. I mean, we still, by all means, like, we've lost some depth now. Anytime you do a 2-for-1 trade, you lose a bit of depth. But we've got to get Isaac Okoro healthy. We got to get Dean Wade healthy. Dean's another 6'8", 6'9" wing guy too. And when he plays, he's great. I mean, we've done really well with him, but it's almost like living in a glass castle with him more and more, that you just can't string together games. So I think this buys us time with the All-Star break and stuff for to kind of do a little mini test run with the next couple of games we have to see how Hunter potentially fixes in, and then he also reunites with Ty Jerome, championship with the championship teammates with the Virginia Cavaliers prior to this. So I know Ty's excited about him coming in the fold, but I definitely feel like the potential for our ceiling has been raised. I'll put it that way.
Where's the ceiling? Where's the ceiling right now?
Well, I mean, if they keep their current pace, I mean, Boston lost again last night. We keep that one seed. I mean, again, it's I think anything less than an Eastern Conference Finals appearance is a failure for the season based on how they got out with a 15-game winning streak, having a second, 12, 13-game streak in there as well, too. Like, you put yourself in a position to have home court advantage throughout the playoffs and not have to play Boston potentially till you get to that. Again, like, it's not going to be a cakewalk. Playing, Milwaukee most likely in that other side of the bracket. But again, I think that at least it's that, but I absolutely think we certainly are in way better position to advance to the finals with this move. And if it's anything like the first OKC game, we're in for a treat. The second one, we'll forget about that one.
Yeah, that one was tough. But no, again, I just like the move. I like that the team Cleveland has, and when they're all hitting, I mean, they're very hard to beat. I felt bad for the Mavs because the first game they played after the trade was against the Cavaliers, and that first half was a beating of all beatings, let alone the rest of the game. So the Cavs can play with anyone. I think we've proven that the first half of the year.
They have. I mean, they're official. I mean, they've officially, even the teams they've lost to. I mean, they've at least beat them once. I mean, they've beaten every team. I believe every team in the NBA. Because they came back, they lost to the Heat. They came back and beat the Heat. They beat the Thunder once before they got beat by the Thunder. Finally beat the Hawks the other night after losing 2 to them. So they beat Boston before. So I mean, they definitely got it in them. But obviously, you got to win 4 out of 7. I mean, you got to
Yep.
win 4 out of 7. Gritty, tough. The playoffs are way different, as we know. I mean, it is a grindhouse. So, Martin, you alluded to some standings here. So obviously, the Cavs still sit. I mean, they're in a dogfight with the Wizards, uncharacteristically 77-76 Wiz with 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. We'll assume, hopefully, that they pull that out. I mean, they've shown us that they can, and the Wizards aren't motivated to necessarily, get a whole bunch of wins and ruin their chance at some draft contention. But the Cavs at the top, 41-10. They're 5.5 games up over the Boston Celtics at 2, followed by the Knicks at 3. 4, 5, 6 goes Pacers, Bucks, Heat. And then 7, you have Detroit and the JV Bickerstaff turnaround, just like we thought he was going to be able to do. He is a floor raiser for teams on the come up. And then we have the Orlando Magic at 8, followed by Atlanta 9 and Chicago 10. Outside looking in, a disastrous Philly season in the first half, Martin. Disastrous for 20-30. And then you've got kind of your tankathon of Brooklyn, Toronto, Charlotte, and Washington. West side, Oklahoma City, best record in the league at 40-9, followed by the Memphis Grizzlies. And then 3, 4, 5, you've got Denver, Houston, Lakers, 6, 7, 8, Minnesota, Clippers, Dallas. And then you have Phoenix, 10, 9, 10, Sacramento, Golden State right on their heels at 11, and San Antonio at 12. And then Portland, Utah, and New Orleans, Martin, who's won 12 games. That took me by surprise yesterday when I heard that. 12 games, New Orleans.
They're terrible. I mean, but they're Zion's never healthy. They've never had any. We talk about New Orleans, and then now Brandon Ingram's gone. So
Talk about another trade that makes zero sense. Like, I think somebody said this is like at least the second, potentially the third trade deadline in a row that a bad Toronto team has attached a first round pick to to go out that they should use for draft capital to rebuild their team. out for a bad contract coming in, with Brandon Ingram being the next one. Like it makes zero sense.
Yeah, it does. But what can you do? I think
Portland has 11 more wins than them. Let that sink in. Portland.
yeah, no, I
Let's give
don't.
Oklahoma City. Let's take a second and give Oklahoma City their flowers. I mean, the Cavs obviously got off to the hot start, and then Oklahoma City just started ripping them off. I mean, they're ahead of the Cavs by a game in the win loss column for the best overall record. But Martin, I mean, obviously Shea's a big piece of that. They're getting healthy and they're bringing back. I think as soon as tomorrow night, I think they get back Chet.
No,
But
he's
I mean,
playing right now.
the Dorcher chamber is real. They pick up Hartenstein. Isaiah Joe, Casey Wallace have been phenomenal in the rotation. J Dub, J Will, Alex Caruso. He was missed some time, but he's been helpful in there too. And don't overlook basically kind of a salary dump effort with New Orleans. They pick up yet another third big, really, and you don't want to rely on Daniel Tice for getting minutes, but I mean that's a veteran NBA body come in and rack up some fouls when you're playing, Anthony Davis in the playoffs, or you're playing Joker, those kinds of things. I mean, they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, and just again, Chet is actually playing as we speak. He came back today. But no, I've been following the Thunder obviously all year because Gilgeous-Alexander is my favorite player in the NBA. So I watch a lot of Thunder games on League Pass, and it's just crazy because they're all still young. And he had zero 50-point games in his career until the past 7 days, or past couple of days where he's had now three. So they are humming. He's definitely the favorite to win MVP right now. And as long as they stay healthy, they'll be the number one seed in the West again because they were the number one seed last year. And no, they're just playing really well, man. They had two All-Stars, Jalen Williams too. So his ascension as well, and I think Chet would have been an All-Star if he played. But here we are, man. Shout out to them. They're playing phenomenally.
Martin, let's roll through the All-Star teams real quick. So, Cavs well represented. I mean, optimistically, they're hoping they got that fourth and Jared Allen right. But I mean, we knew, especially since that's the forward spot, since they got rid of centers, they went to forwards. Like that, probably more of a chance you would see somebody sneak in that than overloaded guards, and every team's got a guard. But so Cavs get Darius in, they get Mitchell in as a starter. Evan Mobley gets his very first and well-deserved All-Star appearance. Obviously great. I mean, great time for Cavs. I believe the first time since the '80s with Nance Price and Doherty that they had three in. I mean, so obviously that's indicative of the season that they've had. So you mentioned the Oklahoma City ones. You want to start West or East?
It's so weird because I'm looking at. Let's start. You could start off the West because I right now have the. I gotta switch what I got right now because I have the Team Chuck, Team Kenny, Team Shaq
Yep.
things.
No, all good. So let's start with the East starters. So you've got Giannis, you've got Tatum, you've got Donovan Mitchell, you've got Jalen Brunson, and you've got Karl Anthony Towns, switching over from the T-Wolves to the Knicks. For the East reserves being Jaylen Brown, Cade Cunningham making his first appearance, Darius Garland making his second appearance, Tyler Hero, Damian Lillard, Evan Mobley making his first appearance, and one Pascal Siakam. On the West, you've got, let's see, I'm not seeing, oh, yep, sorry. You got LeBron, you've got Jokic, you've got KD, you've got Shea, and you've got Steph. And then the reserves are now Anthony Davis, and switching over to the Mavericks. And then you've got Anthony Edwards, James Harden, Memphis Grizzlies forward Jaren Jackson Jr., Alperen Şengün in his very first performance. I'm a huge Şengün fan, and Victor Wembanyama and Jalen Williams. So that lines it out in what is now yet another redo of the All Star game, trying to get people to care. Martin, since you've got that up, we've got Team Chuck, Team Kenny, Team Shaq. We had a draft the other night. Go ahead and take it over.
Yeah, I again this listen to our last podcast and near the end to hear the explanation on why this thing is the way it is and these three teams. We still don't even know the schematics of if two teams are playing. Is the third team just gonna sit out? It's so weird. But anyway, let's start off with Team Shaq. Team Shaq has LeBron James, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, James Harden, and Jaylen Brown.
Is that a
Uh,
real draft?
I did not watch the draft because I
Neither
was
did I. But
recording.
again, that all these people are on the same team. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is like the best of the best. Find me a better team of the next two that you rate. Go Team Kenny.
All right. I'll go to Team Kenny. Team Kenny, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jalen Williams, Darius Garland, Mobley, Cade Cunningham, Tyler Hero. Oh
That
man.
team ain't winning. I love my two Cavs on that team, but that team ain't winning this.
No.
And then
Team
Team Chuck.
Chuck, you got Joker, Giannis, SGA, Victor, Pascal Siakam, Sengun, Cat, and Donovan Mitchell.
Who's gonna? You've got two people in the offense and able to dribble a ball for a length of time on this team. The other guys are great by all means, like Joker, Giannis. Mitchell and Shea are like that's all you got for initiating with like five giant 6'10" people plus. It's interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know, Martin. I don't know that I'm really going to be tuning in. I'm actually going to be on a flight back from Texas. This All Star game is being played in San Francisco. I don't know if it's enough for me to tune in. I'm going to probably watch some highlights from All Star Saturday night as opposed to watch that. But I just wish they'd fix it,
yeah,
and not over fix it. And we're over fixing it right now to the point where it's worse.
I will tune in for a bit, just to see. I just want to see the format and how it's played out, and then I'll see how much I watch it. I mean, what am I telling? I'm probably gonna watch the majority of it. I don't know if I'll put it on my TV. Might be something I just slap on the iPad while doing something else that evening, but yeah, the weekend is rough. It's rough. That's gonna be rough. The
It'll be a
dunk
rough
contest is
presidential
gonna be
weekend.
rough. The 3-point contest might be pretty cool, but
Yeah. EG competing in that.
mhm. But oof, it's rough, man. Like I'm not. It's also the fact too that Team Shaq basically has the freaking Olympic basketball team almost.
Yeah.
And
Chuck and Kenny can't draft. That's all I got to say.
yeah,
I
they
let that
cannot.
happen.
They cannot. Were there any people you felt like I know it's a tough thing because it's like who you're gonna take
Mm-hmm.
off, but like
Sure.
people talked about Trey Young not
Trey,
making it, who's leading the league in assists, Sabonis, who's leading the league in
LaMelo.
rebounds, LaMelo, who's having a pretty, I know his team is terrible, but having a good stat line. But
Yeah.
like, were there any other people besides those three? I think those were the main three. Where people like, how do they not make the team? And
Yeah.
respectfully, I'm gonna have a hot take. Steph Curry should not be
Yeah. No.
starting in the West.
No. No. The easiest one for me at 26 points a game, 6.6 assists, and 4 rebounds is Devin Booker.
Mm,
Again, like who are you going to take off? Like, I know that's always a piece, but that was the first one to me that, I'm like, oof. Yeah, I don't know what else he could have done.
yeah, that's and maybe someone will. Unfortunately, some people will drop out, get hurt, don't play, and then reserves and all of that. But that is going to be in the next coming in 2 weeks. So we'll see what the league does.
And what? Yep, 1 week from Sunday.
Yeah, the All-Star break. We'll see if they care. Every year it's like, oh, care, and then they don't care. But what the heck can you do? Besides the junkies like us, well, obviously you won't because of the wedding, but
Yeah,
if normal junkies like myself that are going to watch, but is anyone
yeah,
else
yeah,
really going to? Probably not.
yeah.
Anything
Marv,
else?
anything else we haven't covered?
Um, ooh,
It was a wild trade deadline. It
yeah,
was wild. We could do mini pods on all these ramifications. What it looks like for tax. I neglected to say for the Cavs, the other magic piece for this trade was, so I believe they were like $1.8 million over the tax, which would start the ball for like the 24-25 season being like what starts them getting into the repeater stuff and starting the timeline for getting really hurt financially with this trade too. They were able to go back under that, so they get to push that off for another year. So just brilliant mathematics on the back end to calculate all that. So like before all those big extensions come in with the core four with Mobley and Garland next year, like I mean, we're not starting that process early right now. I mean, just brilliant by Kobe.
yeah. And I'm glad the Cavs didn't take part in any, because again, once the Luka trade happened, we were all just like, don't let it be our team who does something stupid.
Right. Correct. And they flirted with Cam Johnson. I mean, Cam's a great player too in his own right, but I mean, he is. I know there's question marks for both DeAndre Hunter and Cam Johnson defensively, but I mean, I'll take Hunter over him defensively, and who knows what Brooklyn would have wanted. It's amazing we got by and got to keep what little assets we have left after the Donovan Mitchell trade.
Well, I will say
But
actually one closing thing, again, a serious thing, because you need to get a life. It is a game. It's not that serious. I know we started the
correct.
podcast talking about the league of trade, but threatening Tim McMahon's
No,
life and his family's life, that's just crossing the
yeah,
line. That's unacceptable.
no death threats. I mean, they brought a coffin to the stadium for that was more meme material for to go viral on stuff. But like, there's serious. I mean, when reporters are talking after the game last night in Boston that where Dallas played, that like, hey, when they come home, like there's gonna be a lot of security, like this stuff's uncalled for, like yeah, it's just a game, folks. I mean, I get it's appalling, it's frustrating probably for a Milwaukee fan, but it's not life or death or even flexing to pretend you're attempting to do anything heinous like that. That's just there's just no place for that in life.
No, no. On that serious note, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. We'll be back. We'll maybe talk about our thoughts on the All-Star game once I'll watch it, and maybe when Evan gets to watch some clips when he's back in town, we could talk about if we actually like the format because it's going to be interesting. So we'll have our think pieces on that, and then we'll be back. It'll be playoff time before you know it. And again, the meat of the hoop season's really coming, the real deal stuff. With that being said, also the end of the third quarter as we're recording, Cavs are up 1 point against the Wizards, so maybe it'll be a photo finish, who knows? But again, thank you for listening to us, the L7C podcast, signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.